I had just walked away from a narcissistic dynamic that also required me to walk away from family, friends, the career I had built. I had $70 in my bank account and I had $10,000 of bills due in like days. I was praying to God and asking for help. And the answer that I was getting was share your spiritual messages, your channeled messages on TikTok. And I was like, no, absolutely not. And then I sat down and did it.
Welcome to the Curious Soul Podcast. I'm Cristina Malavenda.
And I'm Marty. We're two best friends exploring the deeper meaning of life
and the moments that connect us all.
Hi, Cristina.
I'm Marty.
How are you?
So amazing. Just so excited as usual. I'm just always excited.
So I'm so excited for what we're talking about today, because today we're going to be talking about overcoming your fear of becoming seen through authenticity.
Wow. I know you are very excited about that.
I'm very excited about it because I'm so afraid of it. So let me talk about what authenticity is first. So authenticity is the quality of being genuine, true to oneself, and aligned with personal values rather than conforming to external pressures. And in psychology and daily life, it serves as a bedrock for well-being, directly correlating with higher self-esteem, better stress coping mechanisms, and healthier relationships. So, Cristina, have you had any issues with authenticity in your life?
It's so funny because I think like on the surface, I'm like, no, I haven't had issues because like I just say and wear everything like on my sleeves. Is that the right way to say it? Like that I wear
on your sleeve? Yeah, you wear it on your
right?
sleeve.
Yeah.
I think it's just one sleeve. Yeah.
Okay, with a sleeve on my sleeve. But like, I mean, I'm sure like as I've gotten older, it's been more difficult to have complete honest conversations or tell people, you know what? Now I realize that's not true. Like for the 8 years I was trying to get pregnant, I didn't tell anybody. I kept that all inside. Like nobody knew that I was struggling to get pregnant. So yes, there are moments in my life where I have struggled being authentic. I think that there's a lot of moments in my life where I am very authentic and I am who I am. But I think sometimes we really have to like sit with ourselves for a moment and really think about like, am I really honest with myself all the time and with other people? Yeah, I don't think so. So yes, I do have problems with authenticity now that I really like start to think about it.
I think everyone does, and why this episode is so special to me is because I found Kristen Shea, who I'll be introducing in just a minute, but I found her channel and it just, I totally related to what she was saying.
Yeah.
I come from a very strict Catholic background and a very Filipino background where expectations of who you are and what you do will hold up your whole entire community. So if you act with like outside of those realms, there's so much shame, there's so much guilt, there's so many boundaries around that. And I think that, first of all, me deciding to be a filmmaker was very, very difficult because only Filipinos are nurses and doctors and very reliable jobs because they come from poverty, and to live outside that and achieve a dream is just like, what are you doing? We don't have dreams, we have stability. And, I've been so afraid to like step into that, but also getting criticized for the movies that I decide to make and hearing what, the people have to say about my movies. It's terrifying. And so I've been able to kind of, confront that fear within myself and am able to hear people's critique now, and I don't fall into a puddle, into a mess. But now we're in another stage in our lives where now we're coming out and we're talking about, spirituality, psychics, near-death experiences, past life regressions. This is
Aliens.
So taboo. Aliens. This is so incredibly taboo from where I come from and, my whole identity and the community around me. It's terrifying. So, like, I think that this conversation is going to be so helpful for so many people today. And like I said, we're going to be talking to Kristen Shea today, and she is incredible.
Yes.
I've seen her on TikTok. I've seen her on Instagram. She's blowing up. And let me tell you about her. So Kristen Shea is a visibility coach. She's a quantum healer and a former publicist known for her signature multidimensional approach that blends energetic healing, identity work, and brand strategy into a single system for becoming undeniably visible. Welcome to the show, Kristen Shea. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Hi, Marty. I'm doing so good. How are you doing?
We are so good. I'm so excited to meet you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And likewise, I can't wait to dive in with you ladies.
Here's a question that we ask all of
Mm.
our guests. And for you specifically, Kristen, for someone who's curious about living more authentically, what's something they might experience that would make them stop and go, wow?
Authenticity can feel like a moving target because as you are shedding what isn't authentic to you, you're also discovering what actually is. And so I think it's such a moving target that as you're going through that process, even the slightest little bit of reaction on the outside can make you stop and kind of freeze up. And you can have either experience where you kind of freeze up or you go, oh, wow, like that feels like a breakthrough. And this person didn't care about this shameful experience that I've been carrying. Or so I think you could have that like whew, stop kind of moment, but it can be positive or negative just depending on how you internalize it, right?
Absolutely. I
Absolutely.
so much to say about that, but I'm going to get into that
Yeah.
later because I seriously found your channel at the most perfect time because I'm just going through what you say about a moving target because all of our lives go in different chapters, right? And there's different times where you realize that there's something you didn't even know about yourself that you didn't even know, or that you were hiding something about yourself that you don't even realize. So what
Yeah.
was that like for you? What got you into this work? How did you ever have a time where you felt like you were hiding yourself? What's your story?
Oh God, I hid my entire life. So 2 years ago, right around this time of year, actually, I was 37 years old and I had just walked away from a narcissistic dynamic that also required me to walk away from family, friends, the career I had built. Like it was a full reset.
Oh,
And because it was like almost everything overnight at once, what I actually realized was I had no identity outside of that existence, like of who I was to other people. Like I didn't exist, if that makes sense. I didn't know what my needs were. I didn't know what my wants were.
yeah.
I didn't even really know, like, is this fun to me? Do I like these things? Like, what do I not like? So much of who I was just the mirror that was reflected back to me of who the world wanted me to be, who society wanted me to be.
Mhm.
And so that was like, a crumbling of my identity. And I had to go into this work of, well, then who am I and what is next? And I'm watching my friends are married, getting married, having kids, like, really moving forward in a different trajectory than what I was experiencing. And so that felt very confusing. And so, I went down this journey to be like, okay, if I'm hitting reset, like I've got to really figure out who I am and how do I do that. And I did it through the first thing I did was start a personal brand because I was also broke at the time, right? So I had just walked away from everything. I had $70 in my bank account, no backup plan, no safety net, and I had $10,000 of bills due in like days when I walked
Oh my
away.
God.
I was like, I'm gonna get a job. If I'm gonna like start a bit, whatever I'm gonna do, whatever happens from here, I need to have a personal brand. And I had been a publicist before that. That was the career I was leaving behind. And so I knew how valuable it was. But I also knew that a personal brand, the way we had been doing it in the world of publicity, was very fake. It was very curated. It was like, be who the
Mm-hmm.
world needs you to be, curate and
Yep.
control perception, right? So I was like, I'm going
Absolutely.
to do this differently. I'm going to figure out, like, I'm going to use astrology and human
Yes.
design and all these different
Yes.
tools, and that's what really started to unravel things for me and just asking myself like really basic questions of like, what do I need? What do I like? Do I even like the
Yeah.
people that I'm hanging around with? And so, yeah, I mean, I hid for 37 years of my life and I didn't even know I was hiding.
Wow.
Oh,
So it's that was the breaking point into this journey for me. And it's why the work is so dear to me now is because I know the transformation that happens.
Wow. I think that's so unique because I was going to ask you, I've never really seen anyone combine that, with
Yeah.
spirituality and your frequency and being able to like take your trauma and then where are you vibrating and also how do you apply that to your branding, to your business. So
Yeah.
this is a very unique path that I think that you wouldn't have never been able to get to unless
Yes.
you went through what you went through, which is
Yes.
Yeah.
fascinating. Oh my God, that's
Truly.
awesome. So, like, why do you think so many people are afraid of fully being seen?
Yeah. I think there are some things that very innocently happen as children. Like one of the examples that I always use is that you could be like 5 years old and you are dancing when a song comes on, and your family just thinks this is so funny. It's so entertaining. They're laughing, they're celebrating you, all the things, right? And so you record that. When I dance, I get this positive reaction. And as kids, we rely on family caretakers to take care of us. So that's like a very positive thing, right? And then the next day, you could draw a picture, which is your favorite thing to do in the world that you absolutely love. And you hand that to your parents, and they're like, oh, that's cool. And they put it up on the fridge, and that's the reaction. An innocent situation. But what your subconscious has just recorded is that your art is less valuable than when you were performing and dancing, right? So there's all these
Yeah.
little things that happen. And then, the society that we live in, there's trends, right? Even that's a very simple, basic one. Like, even throughout this process, I constantly ask myself, like, why do I want to buy this? Do I want to buy this because I'm being influenced? Like, everybody else has this and this will make me fit in or be cool or be a part of the pack. And there's other more obvious things where you're on the playground and you do something and you do get made fun of, or
Yeah.
maybe you spoke up in your family and that made you a target. So there's a whole mix of things that from the very beginning teach us that who we are, it's not safe to be. And even our
Right.
education system teaches silence and compliance. It doesn't teach individuality and expression, right?
Yes.
Right.
They even
Exactly.
say at my daughter is 5 years old, and one of the words they use to describe what they should be learning is obedience, and I'm like, "Obedience? They should be obedient?" I'm like, "I don't know.
Uh,
I don't know how I feel about that," you know? I mean, of course, we
Yeah.
should behave and all that stuff, but obedience, very
That's an
interesting.
interesting and a strong word for them to use. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, the thing that attracted me most to your channel is that I think like I said, there's different stages in your life where you're realizing that you're hiding things that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
And I grew up super, super strictly Roman Catholic,
Mm,
cannot talk about psychics, cannot talk about
yeah.
anything besides, Jesus or this is a giant sin and you're going to hell. And
Yeah.
my secret obsession is psychics. It is spirituality. It is,
Yeah.
And it's not
your
secret anymore.
frequency. It's not secret anymore, but it's about, this podcast is going to come out and my mom's going to be like, oh, I'm going to not hear the end of it. It's going to be horrible. But
Oh.
what I realize is that I've been holding something so, it's like this bomb inside of me that I want to release because it's my passion.
Mm.
I want to
Yeah.
talk about it. I want to learn about it. I want others to learn about it, and it brings me so much
Mm.
joy. And what I realize is that holding it inside is not serving, I feel like, my mission in the world. And when I
Right.
found your channel, I was like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
How do we do this? How do we do
Yes.
this with confidence? And I just want to hear, like, how did you do it? How were you
Mm.
able to become brave enough to speak your truth and speak, what you feel your mission is?
Yeah.
How did you do it?
You know, that was a full evolutionary process that took place over time. It wasn't like an overnight thing. In the very beginning, so I had mentioned I had walked away from that situation. I had $70 in my bank account. So my back was up against the wall. I had about a couple of days to try to figure out and put something together. And I was praying to God and asking for help. And, I didn't just leave this whole situation to really just like lose it all. Right. And the answer that I was getting was share your spiritual messages, your channeled messages on TikTok. And I was like,
Wow.
no, absolutely not. Like, I will not be doing that of all the things. Terrified of being seen, terrified of sharing my spiritual gifts. I had never even shared them at all, so I also didn't, like, know if they were real. You know what I mean? There's also that
Yeah.
feeling of, like, well, I haven't practiced. I don't know what this is. Like, maybe I'm just making this
Yeah.
up in my head um, but I was at rock bottom, and so that was the only answer that I was getting from God, and I was like,
Wow.
okay, so, I fought it for a few hours and then I sat down and did it. And here's where things turned for me is that it took me 5.5 hours to make this video that was less than 2 minutes because it was so
Wow.
painful, like, I kept freezing, I didn't know what I was saying, all of a sudden I'm looking and I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't like the way this looks, why are my eyes 2 different sizes? Why has no one told me that?" Like, you just go through this whole thing when you go to
Yes.
post content, right? It's like such
Yes,
an
you do.
experience. And finally, I don't even know what the video ended up being, and I just was so exhausted, I posted it. And within hours, money started flowing to me out of nowhere. And, like, not
Wow.
TikTok itself, because it was the first video. It's not like I had a following. It's the first video I ever posted. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it was like, "Oh," this person was reaching out, was like, "Oh, I heard that you're looking for, like, freelance publicity work. I hear that you're looking for
Oh my
this." This
god.
person, like and I was like, "Oh, whoa," like, something just took place there, and I was able to pay my rent
Wow.
within the 3-day period, right?
Wow.
Wow.
That was like and then I remember saying to God, like, "If you keep paying my bills, I will keep sharing the messages that you are giving me to share."
I'm getting
Uh,
goosebumps because
Yes.
that is the
Yes.
truth.
I
That
love
is
it.
so oh my god, I
yeah.
love it.
That's how in the beginning, that is how I had to really, because even 3 weeks later, I kept showing up, I kept sharing my messages, or God's messages, and then, I was kind of back in that same position. I think I had maybe around 100 followers, like, not much was happening. But I was like, "If you pay my bills, I'll keep doing it." And so I got another message that said, "Now it's time to offer personal readings." And I was like, "No, absolutely not." All the money stopped flowing to me. The more every time
Wow.
I resisted this, the money stopped flowing to me.
Yes.
So then I was
Wow.
like, "Fine, I know the drill. I'll just post it. I won't even intend to do it, but I'll post it and check it off," right? So I threw up a Calendly link and a Cash App link. No way to connect these, no way to know if, like, somebody booked, had paid, like, just no systems, just threw up these 2 links, posted it in a video, like, "Okay, it's done now." Within 24 hours, I had 70 people book with me.
Oh
Wow.
Less than
my
100
god.
followers, like, I'd been on TikTok for, like, 3 weeks, you know? Um,
Oh
and so
my
these
god.
things kept happening throughout, and then it would be like, "Share your story," and of course, I would resist it because I was still working through all of my fears.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would share it, and then, like, an opportunity or something would come in, and so then I kinda developed this, like, "Oh, my path and this becoming who I am is so divinely supported
Oh
that
my
I'm just
god,
gonna
I
keep
love it.
walking it." So it happened over time in steps, and I
Yeah.
will say now I'm in a place, I would say the last year, I'm in a place where my back doesn't have to be up against the wall anymore to be willing to,
Yeah.
like, that next level of authenticity or sharing or whatever it is. Um, but in the beginning, that is what it took for me to take action. I was in such survival mode that that's what it required.
Wow. And have you always had, like, that intuition, like, growing up, or
Mhm.
was it kind of, like, through time, or how did that start?
I always had it, I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know, and it actually it caused me to have, like, a lot of communication issues because, 1, I didn't know that the information I was getting wasn't me in the beginning, right? So, like, I would say things because when I would meet somebody, I could see, like, I get a flash of their entire life in front of my eyes. I
Wow.
could see their
Oh my
intentions right away. I
gosh.
can see these
Yeah.
things, and when you don't know what that is, you just kinda speak on it, or you just, like, don't
Yeah.
realize not to speak on it, and so
Yeah.
a lot of it was very repelling for a lot of people to have that experience with me, and so that was kind of how I was misunderstood in a lot of ways. Um, so they were always there, but I definitely, like, shut them down,
Mhm.
and then they were always there, but I always questioned them, right? So even when I started to, like, I finally figured out, like, stop saying this stuff out loud at some point, like, you can hide that at home, with your oracle cards or whatever you wanna do, like, tuck it away. I was very compartmentalized, in my life and the way I lived, and, yeah, it wasn't until I actually started doing readings that I had the confirmation of, like, "Oh, this is real, because there's no way I could know this about you
Yeah.
if
Wow.
something wasn't speaking through me."
Yeah. I
Yeah.
it sounds like for you to get to the place that you are now, you really had to surrender and listen to your inner guidance.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something I always teach my clients about surrender is that I think so much of the spiritual things that we know or the knowledge or the things that we say, they're often distorted, but a lot of people think like, oh, you surrender, you just let go.
Mhm.
Surrender is actually being willing to light the match to the fire that you're afraid is
Mm.
going to happen. It's not sitting back and
Oof.
just like,
Oof.
oh, God's going to take care of it. Each time I
Oof.
had to be willing to light that match and burn it down myself, trusting that God wasn't going to burn it down, but being willing to if I needed to, right?
Wow.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's what it's
Yes,
been over.
that's literally what I was gonna ask you because I feel like for some people, like myself, who comes from like a certain culture and a background, that the belief is dogma and that the consequences of being true to yourself means going to hell for eternity.
I
It doesn't
know.
feel like a surrender. It feels like a lighting of a flame that is willing to burn those things down. So, what
Yeah.
would you say to people who have those type of like, quote unquote limitations or barriers around them?
It's different for every single person based on their circumstances, but, for me, and I had to go through and kind of reconcile a very similar situation myself. Half my family was evangelically Christian, half were atheists. And so for me, I wanted nothing to do with any of it. But what I will say is 2 years ago when all of this was happening, it was God and Jesus who walked me through this path. But I connect to Jesus outside of religion. I don't believe in religion really. I talk
Yeah,
to him as
same.
like an ascended master,
Mhm.
not in
Mhm.
the context that I had always heard. So when
Yeah.
Yeah.
I first started connecting with Jesus, I was kind of like, you can come in, but stay over there because I don't know Christian, like what's happening over
Yeah.
there, right? I'm not sure about this. And then when I started talking about Jesus on my pages, that was really big because I was like, well, who am I to talk about Jesus? I've never read the Bible. I don't know I couldn't even read it if I wanted to. I love listening to scripture. I love tapping in that way, but like I don't understand it in that way. Also, people put me in this like new age spirituality category that I also don't feel like I belong in. And I would get a lot of hate on both sides. Like, there would be a lot of
Mhm.
Christians who would, they would flood my DMs about wanting to save me or help me get back to where, like so many different
Right.
experiences.
Yeah.
So what you have to kind of do is reconcile within yourself what allows you the freedom. And so sometimes with clients, I'll
Mhm.
literally say like, hey, it may be better to go have that one-to-one conversation with your family than them just finding out online, right? Like, so you
Yeah.
have to know your own familial relationships and what those reactions are and saying, hey, I know you're not going to understand this. I know we're not going to agree. And it may even make you like really concerned for me. However,
Mhm.
this is a path I'm choosing to walk, and you don't have to agree with it. I just need you to be willing to love me while I still walk this path and
Wow.
trust that, whatever's meant to happen will happen. And having those conversations, right? Because then you're giving them a heads up, but you're also setting a boundary of I'm not going to be open for the feedback loop. I'm just
Yeah.
asking you to be on the path with me, even if we're not walking the same direction.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so you got to kind of reconcile that within yourself. And I will say, I would actually say like 90% of the time, family comes around because the
Yeah.
love will always win. If the love that is there is true, unconditional love, they will
Yep.
usually come around. And if it's not true, unconditional love, as cold as this sounds, it's almost better to have it out of your life anyways, even if it is that immediate family.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
You just said so
Yeah.
many powerful
Oof.
things. So many
Yeah.
powerful
I know.
things.
I'm like
And
absorbing it all. This is so cool.
I've there's a lot of people that we've talked to too that communicate and connect with Jesus. And I
Yeah.
just think that's such a fascinating concept and connection because it doesn't have to necessarily fit in what we think of as religion or just in this like black and white construct. It's all connected and it's all these opportunities for us to connect to something deeper and for us to understand who we are and how we can lean more into love and our authenticity and all the things that are these positive things that are in our life and that can make our lives more positive. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
I'm so glad that you bring that up and I love that we're touching on that. I think that's really
Yeah. I think it is because, I stayed away from Jesus for so long because of the religion around it. I didn't even know it was
Yeah.
an option. For whatever reason, I did not know it was an option to connect with him if I wasn't religious.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And so and whoever your higher power is, God, source, spirit, the universe, like we are all talking about the same divine intelligence.
Yes.
Yes.
I think no matter what lens you connect through, it is the same God. And in any religion, including like a new age
Yeah.
spirituality, you still have to have discernment of what's being taught to
Yes.
you. Because every
Yes.
single one has distortions and darkness and light and truth. And you've got to be the one to filter through that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that there's so many different paths, but if they all lead to love, which is,
Yeah,
the source of everything, then it doesn't matter which way you get there.
Yeah.
right. So true. It's so true.
I'm curious, what's like the biggest transformation that you've seen a client experience through this work?
There's so many because as I've evolved, my work has evolved. And so in the beginning, I worked with a lot of people to break free from the narcissistic dynamic that they were in. And so in the beginning, I've seen some women who were just so incredible, but they were so trapped in a marriage where they had no financial independence, no emotional independence. They had kids, like just things that were making it so impossible for them to leave a situation. Um, and one thing about the quantum field is that when you do this work in a quantum way, you can change and shift your reality very quickly. But the key is to do that quantum work first before you actually leave. And so that's what I've always taught my clients is like, hey, when we clear it in the quantum field, I had one client where finances were a massive tool that he was using to control her and to keep her
Yes.
stuck and
Yep.
hooked, right? And so
Yeah.
we did so much clearing in the quantum field, he no longer used that as a tool. So you literally shapeshift it. Like he immediately was just like, you know what? Yeah, let's just split things down the middle. Let's just do this, whatever. And he was like a very high on the scale of narcissism.
Yeah.
But we don't realize our power in working with the field. And when we clear these things out of ourselves, it literally shifts the vibrations of even the people around us. And so like it literally is a matrix loophole, which is why I'm like so
Yes.
passionate about it.
Can you define, first of all, what the quantum field
Yeah.
is and what you mean by clearing it?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So the quantum field is just this realm of unlimited potential, right? So when I talk about this on the whiteboard, I've always got like a circle and I've got the stick figure in the middle. This inside your circle, like this right here, is your inner world. This is my thoughts, my beliefs, my emotions, behaviors, habits, patterns, experiences, the wounds, all the things. And that is creating my vibration, right? So what's important for people to understand is that I'm in a really good mood today. But if I'm holding shame somewhere in my field, that shame is still vibrating out as a vibration, as a frequency into our universe, right? Into the quantum field, which is unlimited potential where everything exists. Everything,
Yeah.
good and bad,
Right.
everything is there. And so your vibration essentially dictates what you create and experience in the quantum field, which is your reality mirrored back to you. So if you think about it this way, it's almost like you've got these frequencies that are cast out and almost like something that just mirrors them right back to you. So when you carry a
Yeah.
lot of shame, you're going to have financial struggles. You're going to have a hard time being seen. You're probably going to, have that wound of being unchosen and like struggle in relationships. There's so many different things, but it's like literally like cast out comes right back. So when we talk
Mhm.
about clearing it, one of the easiest ways is to look at what is going on in your life, what's in the mirror
Mhm.
back to you, because that will tell you the dominant vibration of what's happening, right? And because again, you don't
Yeah.
have to be feeling it right now. If I'm in a good mood, but I'm carrying shame, shame is still it's still there and it still vibrates out. And this is
Yeah.
where I think like a lot of people get caught in manifestation. They're like, I'm visualizing, I'm doing all the things. I
Yes.
feel, acting as if. And it's like, but yeah, you've got all these other vibrations that are just messing with that signal going
Yeah.
out. So
Yes.
when we clear it, it's like, let's look at what's in the field. So if your spouse is using finances against you, let's look at what that looks like inside your internal field. What are the thoughts, the beliefs,
Mhm.
the emotions, the patterns, the habits, behave, like all of those things.
Mhm.
And so my process is 3 steps, right? It's unconscious, which is a layer below the subconscious that's deep in the psyche. Then it's the
Mhm.
subconscious and then the conscious clearing. And you need all 3 on board to actually like have the energy move. And then that's how you really
Yes.
clear it, alter that vibration, essentially look at a computer. You're like, okay, we remove all the viruses. Let's put in an updated program. And then as soon as you update that and you start to experience that, that now starts to get vibrated back to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So, for somebody who is unconscious of those vibrations that they have, it's probably been programmed in since they were born. How do you bring that to the surface?
The easiest way is to look at what is in your mirror, like what is reality mirroring back to you and kind of
Gotcha.
trace it back to the wound, right? But everybody in like all humans, even animals really, are sharing the same core wounds. We all have different experiences, right? But it's almost always fear, scarcity, shame, guilt, anger or
Yeah.
rage, and unworthiness. And so if you have no idea where to start and you're confused by what's being mirrored back to you, start tapping into those 6 core wounds and you will start to find the pieces that are in your field that are blocking that vibration.
God, that's amazing. How did you learn all of this?
My own process, but then also like so much of what I've done has just been channeled through my guides, like when they were showing it to me, and then to me, and then through me to clients. And so like
Wow.
I just have 2 years of basically hard research that I've been doing myself as they guide me, but then also as I work with clients, and that's how I
Yeah.
developed the whole methodology.
So we met with someone who practices something called huna, and what you are describing is like an ancient old like technique to find your inner power. And it's
That's
so I was just so interested in how you found that, because like she was literally saying like this has been those same type of breaking up between your subconscious, conscious, and all that. These are methods that literally came from like ancient Egypt. So I'm like, this is awesome that you channeled it, because it
Yeah.
is coming from, a
Yeah.
source that is so much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because Goddess Isis is one of the, ascended masters that I work with,
Oh.
and she's, straight from Egypt.
My
So what
God.
is it called? Huna? Huna?
Huna, Huna. Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
a Hawaiian tradition, but then they're saying like even further back it comes from ancient
Wow.
Egypt and the Pleiadians. So,
Yeah.
I'm Palladian as well, that's so funny.
oh my God.
That's
It's a
crazy.
small universe.
Have you read, Bringers of the Dawn?
I
The Ple
haven't. What is
uh,
that?
so it's a really good book, I recommend everybody read it. This is like a book
Bringers of the
that
Dawn.
kinda
Okay.
cracked this open for me, so
Yeah.
it's by, Barbara Marciniak, and I read
Okay.
this book maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, and there's this one sentence in the book, and it says, "We are here to help you broadcast your frequency to open up new pathways." And for whatever reason, that one sentence just, like, radiated in my brain for, like, years, and it wasn't until 2 years ago when I went through this whole situation that it started to make sense, but, yeah, and actually what's funny is part of my authenticity was coming out and saying that I channel galactic beings and sharing, like, Pleiadian channeled
Wow.
messages, and, I had this whole series of, like, totally coming out of all parts of me.
That's
Oh my
So that's
God,
so
that's
that's so spot on between
awesome.
all of it. It's so cool.
Oh my that is crazy. Okay, I'm just like just blown away right now.
Feel like we didn't finish your methodology. I think we
Oh,
were
yeah.
on the unconscious part of it, and then you had all the steps. So I'm wondering if we can go through those steps, and then let's come back to the galactic beings, because I definitely
Yes,
want to
because
hear
this is
what
so
your
awesome. I
experiences
cannot believe
are.
this. This is so cool. It's like all
Yeah,
connecting. It's so
Yes, it's
awesome.
like
I
every
love when that
conversation, it's
happens.
like always the same stuff is coming.
Oh, I
It's
love
that's what's
it.
so
I love it.
fascinating. Yeah,
I know it's when you are so tapped in that way and the synchronicities and how it all it's like it really just makes this life so much fun and you start
It's
yes,
to be
making
like,
me
"Now I see
sweat.
why people say this is like a game." You know?
Yes.
yes.
But yes, so unconscious, subconscious, conscious. So unconscious is the psyche. Those are the deep things that are recorded in whatever your personal human child experience has been, right? So that can be like the shameful situation that happened on the playground or maybe getting shamed in your family, and that is stored somewhere deep in the psyche. And so with the unconscious, a lot of times it's journaling. It's really good if you're working with someone live who does channel and can kind of for me, I can see people's wounds. And so I can help them get to the thing very quickly. We isolate the root and then we can start to dissolve that energy. But you can even do this with friends. Like if you can just sit down and have a super self-aware reflection conversation, and tapping into okay, I really want to work through my shame. And one thing I'll always say, pray, God, source, spirit, I want to work
Mm,
through my shame. Help me do this.
wow.
Show me the next step. And trust me, the memory will surface. You will see a TV show that enacts the same thing that happened to you. Something will
Yes.
surface to bring it to you. The divine intelligence is always assisting us. Um, and then journaling through that experience just to have
Hmm.
full awareness of what happened, right? Because we're very quick to be like, "Ooh, I don't want to feel it. Just get it out of here," or whatever that might be. And so when you have that full understanding, that also allows the conscious to wrap onto something. And if we can have that awareness and go, "Oh my God, that is where that came from. That was never mine to begin with." And now I would look back at a 5-year-old who had that happened, and what kind of an adult would shame that 5-year-old? And what a weird, you can start to actually
Yeah.
put reality to the experience you had. And then we can reprogram the subconscious to replace whatever those beliefs and thoughts are, because your beliefs and your thoughts are what are creating your habits, your patterns, and your behaviors, as well as your personality traits, right? That authenticity. And that's how you're showing up in the world every day. So it's kind of a process where it's you got to get to the whatever that root is, understand
Hmm.
it, pick a new truth, really bringing reality back to the situation. And then from there, it's how did this impact you? How did you stop showing up in life because of the
Yeah.
shame? What did you stop doing? And how do we start to undo that? And then how do we find those personality traits that had already existed within you? One thing I figured out is I'm funny and I enjoy making comedy skits about spirituality and those things. I had suppressed that for so long. I was like, I'm not
Yes.
funny. I'm not creative. I'm not any of these things. So
Yeah.
that whole piece of my content is me discovering those parts of my personality again. And then being like, how
Oh,
can
I
I
love that.
bring this behavior, as a trait, as who I am back into my life? And so you start to make the day-to-day changes, and create space for yourself to create an experience.
Oh my
So,
God, I love that.
yeah.
What about for people who have maybe lived a life where they're always trying to please their parents or please the authorities, please whoever they think is above them, and can't see what brings them alive, or they can't see what their authenticity lies because they've covered it so much. How
Yeah.
what would you advise them to do to find that?
That part, that's super common, and that was also my experience. That's why I didn't thank God I had my guides, because I didn't know where to start with this. How do you figure out who
Yeah,
you are at 37 when you realize everything about you is how you show up and take care of other people? We are all programmed, like we were just talking about with school, to please. And as children, you have to please your parents and your caretakers because they feed you, they clothe you, they shelter. It's not even, it's a survival mechanism, right? So, one of the first ways you can do that is, usually, if you're living that lifestyle, you also carry a lot of resentment. And so starting to tap in with yourself, and as you're watching yourself do something like say yes, or do go after a certain path like college, or certain careers because family or society tells us that that's what we should do, you have to start asking yourself, am I doing this for me or for someone else? And no matter what the answer is, it's okay. I just need to know what it is so I can start to unravel what I'm actually doing. And then you can start to practice things like, okay, well, I have no idea what I like. Maybe I'll go to an art show this week. Maybe I'm going to keep pleasing. I'm not just going to stop, but
hmm,
maybe I'm going to start to do little things, like maybe I'm going to go to a comedy show, or I'm going to go do something just to discover stuff. See what you like and you
yeah,
don't like, right? And then even just asking that question. And then as you ask that question and you start allowing yourself to create more, I think The Artist's Way actually does a really good job with illustrating that book.
totally, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, really, that creativity date, it's really important because it's all that is doing is letting you get to know yourself,
Yeah.
and doing
yes,
something just for you and no one else. And so at the base of that, it's that right there creates the shift. And then if you can just have that awareness of am I doing this because I want to, or does this please someone else? Okay, it pleases someone else. What would actually please me in this moment? And
right,
then you just start to unravel that. And here's the thing about the divine, you take one step forward, they will reflect 10 steps to you. Like this process moves so much quicker, but just the awareness, the intention, and the willingness to move forward
Yeah.
in the unknown and be like, I don't know who I am, but I'm willing to discover, like, show me, give me an opportunity to do XYZ, or show me that next right path. Like the divine will always feed it right back to us.
Before we keep going, if this conversation is resonating with you, please take a second to like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. It really helps us reach more curious souls. And honestly, this is exactly why we wanted to create this show.
Yes. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, send it to them. They might be meant to hear this too. What you were saying is when you do step into the thing that brings you joy and excitement, then the things that you want you can multiply by tenfold, but also being able to see the steps in advance. When, like, I'm just like, my mind is spinning and I love this. I love this conversation so much. What is it about your frequency that helps that get to that point? Can you explain that on a frequency level?
Yeah. So, the first part is you're asking for help. So you're sending out a signal. Most of us don't ask for help. Or we complain and we're like, oh my God, this is so hard. Why can't this be blah, 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 blah. And it's like, literally pray to God, source, spirit, angels, galactics, whoever you're working with. And if you don't know, then just say universe if that's what you're comfortable with and ask, I need help. I need X, Y, and Z. And now you've sent a signal out. So it's going to come back to you, maybe the same day, maybe in a couple days, maybe in a couple weeks, but it's going to come in. It depends on your own vibration. But when you open up that intention, you've now opened your field to possibility versus staying closed. And so the divine can really intervene with you. And like, if you guys want to test this, one thing I teach every client I've ever worked with is how to create totems. And so an easy way to do this is just be like, okay, if this is for me, I'm on the right path and this is aligned, show me this sign. And you can pick a number, you can pick an animal, whatever you want. If I'm not on the right path, if this is out of alignment, if I'm self-sabotaging, show me this. And like, then you can see how quick the signs come into you. And that will start to like open that relationship for you to work with the divine of like, this is the next thing I want to do. But the whole thing that started this for me, I wrote a list of what lights me up. And then I was like, God, show me how to do that. Like, it didn't make any sense. My list was like, I want to go hiking. I really like telling people what to do. I like coaching, like, I really do like to tell people what to do, but I like talking. I like just
Cristina
speaking.
does too. It's okay.
Maybe it's in the name with the Chris in the beginning. But yeah, I just wrote a really basic list. There was nothing profound there, but everything on that list was like actually my truth. And it's what I do today. I still love hiking. I talk and tell people what to do and share things all the time. I love bringing business ideas to life. So I love working with people who are trying to get their business off the ground or whatever creation. So it's like sometimes you can also just start with like, this is a list of things that light me up. God, show me the next step. Show me the path. Like it will literally be revealed to you in some way, always.
I love it. I'm all about signs. Like I picked this. Well, the spider was always in my life, but or at a certain point it came into my life, and then when I actually made it my sign, it started showing up in like the most specific ways, like a billboard or like, just flashing in my face, just so specific and like consistent.
Undeniable, right?
Undeniable.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's so much fun to play with that because you're just like putting it out there and it's like you're getting a response, and that's what's
right
so
away.
fun.
Yes. And then it restores that connection and that relationship, and then you can keep expanding it. But like literally, if you are just willing and set the intention and you have the awareness and you say, God, show me, like it will, everything is, life doesn't have to be as hard. We've just never been taught that, right? Like we really haven't. And if you're really in a bind, the fastest way to do anything is change whatever stories you're telling. Stories about yourself, stories about life, or money is hard, or these things. The second you start to switch your stories, it's the first thing I do with people because you can get a quick transformation. So it gets them out of whatever bind that they're in so that they're in an anchored place where they can actually go through like the big transformation process.
I love it.
Yeah, it's, the divine is supporting us always, 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 even when it feels like it's not as well.
That's hard to remember. And that's hard, like, when just everyday normal life hits you, you forget. You can get really layered
Totally.
on by the daily grind that you just forget about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to go back to Pleiadians.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
I was just, Marty, I think you and I are having like some kind of telepathy in this conversation because every time I
I know.
think of something, I'm like, you ask it. And so it's like, we're all having
Oh
a
my God, I
telepathic
love it.
communication.
We are. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I hope for very soon. So
Right?
how did you start channeling them?
Mm.
Tell us about that, please.
So a couple years ago, I read that book, Bringers of the Dawn, and I was already really into galactics. Like I already had just such a connection, and I would have these really interesting experiences. Like one time I was out in Joshua Tree and like I could see things happening in the sky and just things I couldn't make sense of. I didn't have words to. So I was all but it was already there where I was just like, oh, like the aliens are here, like for sure here. And I was like really
Yeah,
into
yeah.
it. And I was like, come on down. Um and then, maybe a year and a half later, 2 years later, I read that book, Bringers of the Dawn. And that was just like where it just all of a sudden made sense, where I was like, this is what I've been experiencing with the galactics. And this is my understanding of, a lot of this planet with the light and the dark and how much power we have and the unconditional love for like everything was just kind of filtering in. And then as far as channeling, with galactics, so are you familiar with the Octorians?
Yes, I've heard of them. I don't know, like,
Yeah,
the specific of, like, their
exactly.
background.
Yeah.
I
They were the ones I channeled first, and they just because
Mhm,
it just came through. And
mhm.
I literally just sat down and was like, "I wanna channel." And I started writing, and then at some point, it was no longer me writing, and it was the Octorians doing this through my handwriting. And then from there, I was like, "Okay, now the Pleiadians." And so through that, I started to learn, like, the way I differentiate the guides that I'm working with is through frequency. So, like, I can feel it. I can feel who they are. Like, just the knowing is one of my strongest gifts.
Mhm, mhm.
Mm,
And I have the knowing before I have the seeing or the hearing or any of the other clairs. Um, and so they've been coming to me. I didn't know this. They had been coming to me my whole life when I was writing, but
wow.
I didn't know what was happening. Because again, at that point, I didn't know what channeling was. I knew something was happening here where I was kind of like, this does not feel like information that's from me. But it's my
Mhm.
brain, so it must be, trying to make sense of it. And so that's how it started. And then in client sessions, they started coming through and channeling for a lot of my clients. And
Wow.
then from there, a question I always ask myself to stay one in my authenticity and two in my integrity is what would I be most afraid for the world to find out about me? Um,
Mhm.
one of those things was that I channel galactic beings, would be
Yeah.
really scary for the world. So then that's when I was like, okay, that's my next step in my journey of being who I am is to start sharing that I do that.
Wow.
And then as I did that, there was so much validation on the other end from others who were channeling and getting similar information or having similar experiences. So that's kind of
How
how
did
all of
your
that.
family react?
You know, luckily and unluckily, fortunately, unfortunately, I was no contact with almost all of them
Mm,
at this point. So the only person I'm in
mhm,
contact with is my mom.
mhm.
And, she just doesn't get it. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't it's almost like a non-response, really, like,
Mm,
she doesn't know what to do with it, so she just doesn't respond to it. I think tarot or, like, psychic made a little bit more sense to her because that was, I think, maybe just more mainstream and she knew what it was, but when she would, like, see those videos, she's just it just kinda doesn't register for her. I don't
yeah.
think she knows what
Right,
to do with it, so,
right.
I
yeah.
think that the thing is that it's yes, that it's very hard, and that's what we're hoping to do with the podcast is have these
Oh,
conversations, make it accessible, normalize it, make it fun and
Yeah,
exciting because it is. Like we
yeah,
have the power to
yeah,
form and shape our lives in this magical,
yeah,
exciting
yeah,
way. And there's so much possibility. And it's just so interesting because we're hearing this from a lot of different people that they're able to
yeah.
channel galactic beings. And in my one of my past life in between life regressions, I saw myself living on another planet in the future. And I've always, like, my connection has been really interesting, and we don't have to go down that road, but it's just like we keep having these conversations and we keep hearing people's experiences. And so it's
yeah,
just this idea that like we're all connected to like everything. And if we look at
Yeah.
the planet, it's nature, animals, people, right? But it's the universe too. And it's like all
Yeah.
the planets. And, even when we think about astrology and like how that impacts our life, and it's just like
Yeah.
everything is just connected.
I
Yeah.
also think that if it's too big of a thing for people to understand, if it sounds so off, let's go back to just like the simplicity of it all. If you really go down to the basics of, just like if you fill yourself with your goals and you clear away your, the traumas or the negative self-talk, you're able to get your dreams. That is at the most
Okay.
simplest, most basic thing. Take
Mhm.
away all the stuff that sounds too weird. Like, does it work? Yes.
Right.
Yes, it does. So, like, maybe it's just like having these little introductions to something that's so much bigger. And I just thank you for your work because this is like
Yeah.
so
You're
exciting.
It's
welcome.
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a gift, and we do live in this beautiful reality, and, the other side of that reality is there are people who are not gonna understand you, and you do have to be okay with that, right? Like, whether, you know my mom, I didn't have to deal with backlash, but there certainly wasn't, like, that level of acceptance, I would say, on that side of it. I think she's just always like, "I hope you're okay, and I hope you're doing well." Like, I think that's she's trying to wrap her mind around that, and she loves me very much, I know that. I know she would rather not have those things posted, especially in the beginning, because her boss or people she worked with would be seeing it, and, everybody on Facebook could see certain things, and that, I think, felt very revealing. I know people I went to high school with were like, "What?" and unfollowed me or whatever, all those things. But I also connected with hundreds of thousands of people who
Yeah.
it was a
You
shared
connect.
experience,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yep.
it's like, you've gotta kinda weigh those options out and understand that, like, the world can only reject what you're already rejecting about yourself. Because as soon
Uh,
as you accept that, whatever rejection happens on the outside, first of all, it's just removed from your field, so you
Yeah.
don't even
yeah.
really know it or experience it. But on the other side of that, it's so quick it's replaced. It's like the rejection doesn't
Yeah.
exist because the missing link is filled with the people you're actually meant to connect
Yes.
with, you know?
Thank
Yes.
you for saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. That's such a relief. That feels like a breath of fresh air to be like,
Yeah.
you don't need to be connected to the people who are going to shit on you.
Totally.
Like
Totally, and that's one of the things I always teach people, like, especially the entrepreneurs I work with, because I'm like, "Okay, there's 100,000 people that are already in your field waiting
Yeah.
for you to work with you. They
Yeah.
have money, they wanna pay you, they need
Yes.
what you have, but you're
Yes.
talking to everybody over here with your watered down message, and so these people
Yes.
can't hear you, and these people never plan to pay you or work with you anyways."
Wow.
And
Yes.
so so it's like you really gotta focus on who you're here for.
I'm just really like seeing this so much right now because like we're filmmakers and I direct, Lifetime movies sometimes and they are all about women who are abused, who have been traumatized, but also come out in the end and are victors and are able to like use their traumas to then um, inspire others. And I come from a lot of abuse and made a lot of short films in film school about abuse and wanting to like use those traumas as superpowers. And I was very ashamed to make the Lifetime movies because everybody would talk about how shitty they are. And I was like, why am I so afraid of the people that think these are shitty movies? They just don't understand. They've never been, abused. They don't understand what it's like to be able to look at all your traumas and be able to become better than than what you've experienced. And
Right.
millions of people have watched my movies and love it and appreciate it. Why am I so insecure about this small group of people who think only, 824 movies or movies that go to con are worth it, And I'm like, why am I trying to fit into this box that I don't fit in?
Think about how many people that you've impacted with planting the seed of hope or possibility to get out of that situation, or like the women who finally feel seen because their story is in front of them. And that takes a little, like, there's so much impact that you're having by not fitting into the box.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually think the power, I mean, we have to look at it in a realistic perspective. The power and the change that we want to see in this world is not going to fit into any box that they've created. We have to create the
Yeah.
box ourselves or burn them all down, right? So it's like, that's
Yes.
actually really cool.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, and congratulations on your movies. I mean,
Thank
you
you.
had a top Netflix movie as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that so
Yeah,
much.
that's amazing.
We want to help people and we hope to make a difference. And I think we realize that we have to go deep to make that difference. I think like we need to meet people on that soul level.
Yeah.
We're all intuitive. We all have that ability to tap in. It's just that we need to be open to it. And it's just some of these things are just very deep. And a lot of these things that we're talking about have that opportunity to really open us up and heal us to
Yeah,
understand where these things are coming from. Whether they're
absolutely.
traumas that we understand or whether they're traumas that are just, unless we get quiet and sit with ourselves, sometimes we can't really see or understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you might say about the opportunity to lean into this stuff, not just as guidance, but also as an opportunity for us to heal ourselves?
One thing that I think is important, because I see it as a trend right now, is that if you are open to the healing will take place by living your life. I see a lot of people go into healing loops and never come out of them and they stop living life. And I myself even did that, right? Like, just what's the next thing to fix about me? What's going to make me lovable, acceptable? What will make me chosen? What will make me all of these things? And so, if you're open and aware, life will present you the opportunity to heal. You have to, like, live in that moment and be present enough to see every trigger. Like, I literally look at my entire life as a mirror. So, if
Mm,
something is in front of me, where is that in my field? Good or bad? What is that? How do I either amplify it or what do I need to look at here that is triggering me or upsetting me or
yeah.
causing some form of discomfort?
Yeah.
Uh, but I think if you really focus on living life for yourself, every moment in life is going to present you with an opportunity to show you the thing that is preventing you from living the life that you want for yourself. And then you just look at each one as it comes. But that would be my number one advice because I just see so many people stuck in a healing loop.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I still have more questions about Pleiadians. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so now with disclosure happening,
Hmm.
and I feel like this subject is literally allowed to be in the zeitgeist now. People are
Yeah.
allowed to say it
Yeah.
and are not crazy for saying it, which I love. I love, 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 and I just can't wait for it to come out even more because I want to learn more about that. And what is it that, because I feel like Pleiadians are trying to have humanity realize their own powers.
Hmm.
Can you tell us more on that?
Yeah, the Pleiadians transmit a very special frequency of unconditional love, and that is ultimately what they're trying to return to this planet. And the Galactics are working with us, in so many capacities to help us remember the truth within ourselves because we can't do anything about the external until we've done it within ourselves. And so the Pleiadians specifically, though, they carry like this just undeniable unconditional love frequency that they are returning to the planet, which means we've lived in a very judgmental system. Like the system itself has been, I mean, our system is narcissistic, right? It's like
Yeah.
narcissistic and judgmental,
Yep.
and we're returning from that. And so that's part of what they're broadcasting and transmitting through and trying to help humanity in healing. The Galactics have already removed so much darkness from our planet. It's actually now us to come out of the mind control that darkness left behind, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like that's happening now, or we're at like a precipice of choosing that or running in fear because now that everything else is crashing around, who do we trust, you know?
Right. Totally. Inside. Go within. I always tell people like the two skills that people need to develop is discernment and
Yeah.
critical thinking. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
people are going to have a really difficult time in this next chapter if they haven't created discernment, one, to know. One thing I've always had is the gift of discernment, which I question everything. I don't care
Yeah.
what it is. Like I do not take anything on as
Yeah.
truth until
Yeah.
something within me, it clicks as truth.
Yeah.
And I think so
Yeah.
many of us are just like, we're watching spiritual teachers and leaders and gurus and all these people teaching things. And it's like, most of them are regurgitating information. Like, what's
Mhm.
true for
Mhm.
you? Go inside
Yeah.
and find out what that is because all three of us could have a different truth, right? And
Yeah.
we're here with different experiences. And then the ability to critical think. I think everybody is so used to ChatGPT and social media feeding things that
Yeah,
actually thinking by yourself is a missing skill right now.
I think
absolutely.
that discernment is so important that I think we need like an episode on it. I think that
Yeah.
that's
I
something that
know.
keeps coming up for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially now when you can create any image or video.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
With authenticity, just something that came up, how would you talk about like purpose and calling or your calling? Is that like an aspect of your authenticity? And is that like important to understand or be aware of? How does that work into it?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, our purpose is to become ourselves in this lifetime. And so we attach purpose usually to the mission or the calling, right? Which I think that's the general way it's been programmed into us. But our purpose in this lifetime is to become who we actually are on a soul level. It's to shed that false identity. Our mission and our calling is the thing that we are uniquely here to share. It's not going to be learned in a book. It's not going to be learned in school. It's your lived wisdom, your experience, your
Mhm.
story. It's all of that. Any certificates you get, the education that you get, the modalities and stuff that you learn are icing on the cake. But your
Yeah.
story, your truth, your wisdom, and your lived experience is
Yeah.
what is the calling. And a lot of us resist that, right? It
Wow.
doesn't seem
Yeah.
grand enough because it's so easy to us that we're like, is this even valuable? This is just
Yeah.
who I am and it comes easy for me. Communication is it's so easy for me. Can I make money off that? And it's like, yeah, that's what actually people want from me is that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's understanding how that contributes to the mission or the calling. Like the things that you went through and what you have experienced and what you are naturally drawn to is
Yes.
not wasted. There's a reason for that. So figure
Yes.
out what lights you up, look at your
Yes.
experience, look at your wisdom and your truth. Otherwise, you're just a parrot regurgitating information, and we have enough of that. We don't need you to go read a book
Yes.
that's already been written and then tell us about it.
Yep.
Go live an experience, then come and teach that to us, right?
Yeah.
That's mission, that's calling.
I think that's what people are magnetized to, right? Your
Yeah.
authenticity, your, looking at the wounds or the scars or the way that you are different is the thing that
Yeah.
makes you the most beautiful. So I love
Absolutely.
you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I literally could talk to you forever. You
Yeah.
have lit
Yeah.
us up. I'm so
Come back.
excited about
Come
yes,
back.
please, please, please. I'm tell people how they can find you.
Yeah. Sure. I'm on all social media platforms at the Kristen Shea, thekristenshea.com. And I do everything from helping you overcome the fear of being seen to connecting to your mission, your calling, and then to getting paid to live that mission and calling. And I work with the quantum field, the angelics, and the galactic beings throughout that entire process. So would welcome anyone into my world. But if nothing else, I hope that this podcast itself was an activation for everybody listening.
God, I have to take your classes. Okay, so I have two final questions, and one of them is, what do you think is the impact your work or experiences have had on people's lives?
I mean, I don't even think I could put it into words. It's profound. And I don't say that from a place of ego because, again, so much of this is channeled through me. We are all channels for the divine. I believe so deeply in the work that I'm doing is absolutely changing the world in so many ways that I plan to get this into schools. I plan for this
Yes.
work to be available everywhere in every way possible. So you guys
Yes.
can all prepare to get sick of me because I'm about to be everywhere talking about
Oh my
this.
No,
God, I
But
love it.
it's
it's
amazing.
so profound.
Yes.
I've seen people's lives change in the most incredible and epic ways. I've seen people escape situations that should have taken them out. I've seen people
Wow.
create things that are now changing the world because they're finally sharing their gifts.
Wow.
And even on the ones where, they're not sharing gifts or they're not leaving horrendous situations, they found who they are, which is the whole thing we're doing in this lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if our listeners were to take one thing from this conversation, what do you think is most important?
I think the most important thing to walk away with is your connection to the divine and allowing that to take shape in any way that it does for you, but making sure to take 60 seconds a day and tap in with the divine. And if nothing else, ask for help because we do have free will in this earth. And if you do not ask for help, they can only do so much. So talk to God, source, whoever, ask, 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 ask. They want to do so much to help us.
I'm going to go ask right now.
Yes,
I know,
me
right?
too, me
Right
too.
now, I'll go enter this.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much, Kristen.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Please like and share.
And you can subscribe at thecurioussoulpodcast.com for all things curious.